Welcome back to the deep dive, where we really try to unpack complex topics and get straight to the essential insights you need. Today, we're taking a deep dive into something that touches, well, every single one of our digital lives: privacy and online rights.
It's huge, isn't it?
Because
Affects almost everything we do online.
absolutely. And we're pulling insights from a pretty comprehensive and authoritative source, the CYBOK 1.0, the cybersecurity body of knowledge. Our goal is to help you understand the core concepts, the persistent challenges, and also the cutting-edge solutions that are emerging in this really rapidly evolving space.
Yeah, things change so fast here.
They really do. So our mission today is to cut through the noise, get past just the headlines, and give you a shortcut to being truly well-informed about privacy. We want to arm you with a deeper understanding of what's actually at stake and how it's being protected, or maybe not protected. So what exactly does privacy mean in our hyper-connected digital world, and why does it feel like such an elusive goal sometimes? Let's unpack this.
Okay, so when we first think about privacy, our minds, they often jump straight to confidentiality, right? It's the very intuitive idea of keeping information secret, locked away from prying eyes.
Like a digital diary with lock.
Sort of, yeah. In the context of online rights, this translates to minimizing the collection of your data wherever possible. But here's where it gets really interesting and maybe a bit more complex. It's also about minimizing the amount of information that can be inferred from any data that is collected or released.
Ah, inferred. So not just what's explicitly there, but what you can figure out from it?
Exactly. It's a foundational layer, absolutely essential. But it's crucial to understand that privacy isn't just a binary on-off switch for data visibility. It's really more of a spectrum, a sliding scale.
So it's not just about that locked box then, is it? It's about how much someone can even guess about what's inside that box, even if it's not fully open. That feels like a crucial distinction. It moves us beyond just simple encryption, doesn't it? It's about obscuring the patterns, the hints.
Exactly, you've hit it. The goal isn't always complete concealment, which, frankly, is often infeasible or even impractical in these complex, interconnected systems we use every day. I mean, imagine trying to run a smart city with perfectly anonymous, untraceable data. It just wouldn't function. The services rely on some information.
Right. Traffic flow needs location data. Utilities need usage data.
Precisely. So instead, the focus shifts to controlling the extent to which an adversary, or maybe even just an unwanted third party, can make accurate inferences about your sensitive information. This gives us a more, let's say, relaxed yet pragmatic definition of confidentiality in certain contexts. We're not aiming for total invisibility, but rather for effectively limiting what can be deduced about you.
Okay, a more practical approach. But that sounds like it comes with trade-offs.
Oh, absolutely. A very clear and important trade-off. If an application's core purpose inherently relies on specific, sensitive information, think of a dating application, for instance.
Needs to know quite a bit about you to work.
It needs your preferences, your age range, location, interests, all that, to find suitable matches. If you try to limit that information too much for the sake of privacy, you might severely impact the application's utility. You could essentially break its core function.
Makes sense. No matches if you share nothing.
Right. But on the other hand, for something like a basic weather application, well, it only needs very rudimentary, maybe generalized location data.
Like just the city, not my exact street address.
Exactly. For that kind of app, these confidentiality techniques can be deployed with minimal impact on how useful it is for you. The app still works perfectly fine, gives you the forecast, and your precise location remains private. So the constant challenge for system designers, then, is always finding that delicate, often elusive balance between protecting your privacy and maintaining the utility of the service. It's not always easy.
A tightrope walk, really.
It really is. So to navigate these complex trade-offs and truly protect confidentiality by controlling what can be inferred, various sophisticated techniques are employed. We can broadly categorize them into, say, obfuscation, generalization, perturbation, and then there's a more mathematically rigorous approach like differential privacy. Each offers a unique strategy.
Okay, let's break those down. What's the first one? Obfuscation.
Right, obfuscation. This technique involves strategically suppressing or hiding a part of the information before it's made available to an adversary. The underlying rationale is elegantly simple. The fewer data points an adversary has, the harder it is for them to make accurate inferences or, crucially, re-identify individuals.
Like trying to complete a puzzle with critical pieces deliberately removed makes the full picture impossible to see.
That's a great analogy. But the key here isn't random hiding. Simply suppressing data points at random is unlikely to destroy the specific patterns that allow for those inferences we talked about.
Ah, so it needs to be smart hiding.
Exactly. You need tailored strategies that understand the inherent structure of the data and anticipate potential attack vectors, what someone might try to figure out.
Okay, any common examples of that?
Yeah, a common and practical one is small count suppression. This is where aggregated values below a certain predefined threshold are simply not reported. So for instance, if a demographic group in a public data set, say people with a rare condition in a small town, contains fewer than 5 individuals, their specific data might be withheld entirely to prevent re-identification.
Makes sense. Prevents singling people out in small groups.
Right. But the effectiveness of this, however, heavily depends on how the data can be accessed and, crucially, what an adversary already knows.
External knowledge, like other public records.
Precisely. If an attacker has external knowledge, perhaps from other public sources, they might still be able to deduce the suppressed information by combining data sets. It's not foolproof. We see this applied broadly in database anonymization, where specific values in cells are hidden or masked, or in location data publishing, where samples that provide too much unique or identifying information are suppressed.
Like maybe not showing my location if I'm the only person in a very specific, tiny geographical area at that moment.
Exactly that, to avoid pinpointing you.
Okay, so that's obfuscation. What's next? Generalization.
Right. Building on that, our next technique is generalization. This method actively reduces the precision of the data. Think of it like blurring the details, much like adjusting the focus on a camera lens so things are less sharp.
Less specific information.
Exactly. Instead of providing your exact ZIP code, for instance, a system might only provide the first 2 or 3 digits, or maybe just the broader county or region you live in.
Which immediately makes it harder to pinpoint my specific house.
Significantly harder. It creates a larger pool of potential individuals. Another common method is bucketization for numerical data. Here, specific values are grouped into broader ranges or buckets.
Like age groups instead of exact age.
Perfect example. Rather than providing your exact age, which is highly precise, the system might categorize you into a broader age bracket like 2030, 3040, or 6070. Our source CYBOK actually gives a nice illustration showing how individuals, let's call them Alice, Bob, and Carla, with their exact ages and ZIP codes might have their data transformed. So Alice's age of, say, 25 might become 2030, and her specific ZIP code 21287 might become 21, or just 21XX.
I see. So that transformation makes it considerably harder to pinpoint individuals, but you still keep some broader demographic information.
Exactly. It's still valuable for statistical analysis or for providing general services, but without exposing those fine-grained personal details that could compromise your privacy. It's quite a clever way to keep data useful at an aggregate level.
Okay, that makes sense. Obfuscation hides, generalization blurs. What about the third one, perturbation?
Right, perturbation. This technique involves adding carefully controlled, random noise to the data.
Adding noise, like static.
Kind of like that, yeah. It makes it more difficult for an adversary to deduce your original sensitive information. Think of it like adding just enough static to a radio signal to obscure the underlying message, but in a controlled, measurable way so the overall information isn't completely lost. The goal here is often to achieve a specific privacy property, maybe something like K-anonymity.
K-anonymity, what's that?
It's a state where each individual's record becomes indistinguishable from at least K-1 other records in the dataset. So if K is 5, your record looks identical to at least 4 others based on certain attributes.
Ah, so you effectively hide in the crowd.
Precisely. By slightly altering a few non-critical data points for certain individuals, you can ensure that for any combination of public attributes like that age bracket and generalized location we talked about, there are always at least K individuals sharing those exact same attributes. Makes it much harder to single anyone out.
But it sounds like a balance. Too much noise, the data's useless.
Absolutely. Too much noise and the data becomes garbage. Too little and the privacy protection is weak. It's about finding that sweet spot.
Okay. Obfuscation, generalization, perturbation, that leads us to what you called the more mathematically rigorous one, differential privacy. This one sounds important.
It is. It's often seen as a gold standard, though like everything it has its nuances. Differential privacy is a more mathematically rigorous and robust approach, designed to provide a very strong privacy guarantee, also typically by adding noise.
Adding noise again, how is it different from perturbation?
The key difference lies in the guarantee it provides and how the noise is usually added. This noise can be added either to the raw data itself, though that's less common, or, more practically, it's added to the answers of queries made against the data.
So you query the database and the answer comes back slightly fuzzy.
Exactly. The fundamental idea, and this is where its real power lies, is to make it statistically impossible, or at least very, very difficult, to tell whether any single individual's data was included in the data set used for an analysis.
Wow. So running the analysis with my data versus without my data should give pretty much the same result.
Pretty much, yeah. Within a certain mathematical bound, if an adversary can't tell the difference whether your data was in or out, your privacy is preserved, even if they have significant background knowledge about you from other sources.
That sounds incredibly powerful, like the ultimate hiding in plain sight for my data seems almost too good to be true. Are there catches? Practical issues?
Well, yes, it certainly comes with practical challenges. A really significant one is determining the appropriate value for a parameter called A. That's epsilon.
Epsilon.
Yeah, epsilon. It's the mathematical control knob for the level of privacy. This A value is absolutely critical because it dictates the precise amount of noise added. A smaller epsilon means more noise and therefore stronger privacy, but potentially less accurate results. A larger epsilon means less noise, better accuracy, but weaker privacy.
So just saying we use differential privacy isn't enough. You need to know the epsilon.
You absolutely do. Merely claiming differential privacy isn't enough. The epsilon value must be carefully chosen. It should ideally be publicly disclosed, and users need to understand what it means as it directly impacts the strength of the privacy guarantee. And our source, CYBOK, highlights a really important point here. If exe-free is set to a relatively high value, say 3, for instance, well, the math shows that the ratio between the probability of observing a certain result when your data is in the dataset versus when it is not is e to the power of 3.
E3.
And E3 is...
It's about 20.08.
So think of epsilon like that privacy dial.
Yeah.
Smaller number, more fuzziness, stronger privacy. But a large epsilon, like 3, means your individual data still contributes noticeably. The probability of seeing a certain outcome if your data is included is about 20 times higher than if it isn't. That's a probabilistic difference that can often still be detected by standard statistical methods or even modern machine learning classifiers.
Wow. Okay, so an epsilon of 3 doesn't sound that private after all.
It's certainly weaker than smaller values. It means that A values greater than, say, 1 deserve a very close look and cautious interpretation. We need to ensure the algorithms truly provide the desired level of protection. It's not just about applying the technique, it's about fine-tuning that epsilon to be genuinely effective.
Because a poorly chosen epsilon could give a false and maybe dangerous sense of security.
Exactly. It's that tightrope walk again between data utility, getting useful answers from data, and your ultimate anonymity.
That's a really fascinating breakdown of how data can be obscured, blurred, or made statistically fuzzy. But it makes me think, privacy isn't just about hiding things, is it? It's also fundamentally about agency, about choice, my ability to decide what happens with my own information.
Absolutely. You're pointing towards the broader, more modern notion of privacy as control. This understanding is especially prevalent in major regulations like the GDPR in Europe. It fundamentally shifts the focus from just concealing information to giving you, the user, the tangible ability to control what happens with the information you do choose to reveal.
Because often we do choose to reveal things.
Right. In many scenarios, revealing data is simply unavoidable, or perhaps even perceived as beneficial to him. You think about using social media to connect with friends, or the convenience of personalized shopping recommendations. You're often choosing to opt in.
But you want to define the rules of engagement.
Precisely. You want to say in how it's used, beyond just that initial share. Who sees it? Who profits from it? How long is it kept? For what purpose?
Exactly.
So this expanded notion of privacy as control addresses two major concerns in our data-rich world. First, it empowers users like you to clearly express how you expect your disclosed data to be used. This helps prevent undesirable processing by service providers. You could maybe specify that your location data shared for that weather app should only be used for weather forecasting and explicitly not for targeted advertising.
That would be ideal.
And second, it empowers organizations themselves to define and enforce policies that prevent the misuse of information, as defined by you, the data subject. They become responsible for upholding your preferences.
Okay, but that sounds like it relies on the organization actually doing what they say they'll do.
Ah, yes. And this is a crucial point that our source really emphasizes. There's an inherent trust issue here. These control techniques ultimately trust the service provider that collects the data to correctly enforce your policies with respect to third parties.
And also not to abuse the collected data themselves.
Exactly. So even with sophisticated controls and carefully articulated preferences, you're ultimately relying on the ethical and technical integrity of the entity holding your data.
Which feels like a big leap of faith sometimes, given some of the headlines we see about data misuse. That trust isn't always well placed, is it?
It can indeed be a significant leap. And
Yeah.
CYBOK points out a fascinating, almost counterintuitive side effect here, a kind of control
A
paradox.
control paradox.
Yeah, providing users with more tools and this perceived sense of control over information flows can sometimes reduce their perception of risk. If you feel like you're firmly in the driver's seat with all these buttons and dials, you might naturally feel safer.
Makes sense psychologically.
But this perceived safety can, perhaps ironically, lead people to engage in increased risk-taking behavior, maybe sharing more data or sharing it in more context than they otherwise would have.
So the feeling of control could actually lead to less overall privacy.
It's a possibility. It could effectively reduce their overall privacy, even with more controls technically in place. It's a complex psychological dynamic that developers and policymakers really need to consider. Simply adding more buttons or options doesn't automatically equate to better privacy outcomes. The human element, how we perceive and react, is always present.
Which brings us right to privacy settings. They can be notoriously complex, just overwhelming for the average user. It often feels less like driving and more like trying to navigate a labyrinth blindfolded.
Yes, absolutely. Supporting effective privacy settings configuration is a major persistent challenge. Research, cited in CYBOK, has shown time and again that the sheer complexity, the volume, and the often obscure design of these settings in many web services makes them, quote, barely usable for individuals.
Barely usable. That's quite damning.
It is. Think about trying to find a specific setting buried deep in layers of menus, or trying to decipher jargon that feels like it was written by lawyers for other lawyers, not for you. And this lack of usability directly causes users to misconfigure their privacy settings. They unintentionally set configurations that just don't match their actual expectations for how their data should be handled.
And the result.
Unintended disclosure of data, which completely defeats the purpose of having those controls in the first place. This is where the intersection with human factors becomes so critical.
Yeah, we've touched on this in other deep dives. If security and privacy mechanisms aren't intuitive and usable, people will inevitably bypass them or ignore them or misapply them.
Exactly, which leads directly to vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
It's this constant battle between robust technical design and real-world human behavior, and sadly, usability often seems to lose out to complexity or other priorities.
So, if controlling data is key and usability is a huge challenge, then knowing what's happening with it or being able to find out transparently must be equally important. It's not just about what I can do, but what I know is being done. Is that where the idea of privacy as transparency comes in?
That's a really good way to frame it. And you've hit on another crucial modern dimension of privacy. While our source, CYBOK, doesn't have a specific heading called privacy as transparency as a distinct category like confidentiality or control, elements within it definitely speak directly to this idea. It's about clarity, openness regarding data practices, making those unseen processes, the data flows, visible, giving you the ability to comprehend how your data is used, even if you're not actively controlling every single step.
Because transparency builds trust, or at least allows for informed distrust.
Exactly. It provides the necessary basis for informed decision-making. How can you consent if you don't understand what you're consenting to?
So how does that play out in practice? What are some concrete examples where transparency is built in or mandated?
Well, one very effective way, mentioned in the source, is through purpose-based access control. We touched on access control earlier, but this adds a critical layer. It isn't just about who can access data, but crucially, why they can access it. Traditional access control might just say, user X can access data Y.
Okay, a permission granted.
But purpose-based control adds that crucial layer. User X can access data Y for purpose Z. Like analyst team can access anonymized usage data for service improvement. By specifying and enforcing the explicit purpose for which data is collected and used, systems inherently become far more transparent about their intentions. It helps you, the data subject, understand precisely what your data is being used for.
Transforms a simple tick box into real understanding.
Hopefully, yes. Another fascinating concept that aims to boost transparency and empower users is crowdsourcing annotations for website privacy policies.
Crowdsourcing. Like Wikipedia for privacy policy.
Oh, kind of. Imagine a scenario where you, alongside countless other users, could collaboratively clarify that dense, often impenetrable legal language found in typical privacy policies. This collective effort could annotate, summarize, maybe even translate these documents, making them genuinely understandable to the average user, rather than something only a lawyer could love.
That would be amazing. Democratizing understanding.
That's the goal, empowering you by making the opaque much clearer, helping you make truly informed decisions about your data without needing that law degree.
Are there legal requirements for transparency too?
Oh, definitely. Perhaps the most widely recognized and legally mandated example of transparency in action comes from the GDPR's personal data breach notification requirements.
Right, when things go wrong.
Exactly. The GDPR defines a personal data breach very broadly. It covers pretty much anything: accidental loss, unauthorized access, alteration, destruction, disclosure of personal data. When such a breach occurs, the organizations controlling or processing your personal data are under a strict obligation to notify the relevant authorities and, often, to notify you directly, especially if the breach poses a high risk to your rights and freedoms.
So it's not just a formality.
Not at all. It's a critical mechanism for transparency. It ensures you are informed about incidents affecting your data. This enables accountability on the part of the organizations holding it. And crucially, it allows you to take timely action, maybe changing passwords, monitoring your financial accounts more closely, or even pursuing legal remedies if necessary. It's about making sure that when something goes wrong with your most sensitive information, it doesn't happen entirely in the dark.
You get the information you need to protect yourself.
Both.
Okay, this is painting a much bigger picture. It sounds like privacy isn't just about individual preferences or these technical safeguards we've been discussing. It has much broader societal implications, connecting deeply to fundamental rights and even how our democracies function.
That's profoundly true. Privacy technologies are absolutely paramount for ensuring that our fundamental right to privacy is respected and upheld in the digital world. Protecting privacy isn't just a nicety or a feature. It directly underpins the very values that support democratic societies. It's about more than just keeping secrets. It's about maintaining individual autonomy, fostering free expression, and preventing manipulation.
You mentioned Daniel Salove earlier.
Yes, and his quote is worth repeating because it captures it so well. Part of what makes a society a good place in which to live is the extent to which it allows people freedom from the intrusiveness of others. A society without privacy protection would be suffocation.
Suffocation. That's powerful. Without that private space for thought, dissent, personal development, the fabric of a free society phrase. Can you give us a real-world example of how privacy failures can directly impact democratic processes? Beyond the theoretical risk. We've certainly seen headlines that suggest this.
Absolutely. The Facebook Cambridge Analytica case is probably the starkest and most widely known reminder of this connection. It was a painful lesson in digital ethics and democratic integrity.
Yeah, that was huge.
It really highlighted how the failure to secure data, whether through insufficient confidentiality measures, allowing unauthorized access, or a lack of robust control mechanisms over how data could be used, can lead to the manipulation and interference of citizens. In that case, personal data, which was ostensibly collected for academic research under certain rules, was leveraged without proper consent to build detailed psychological profiles.
And then used for political targeting.
Exactly. Used to target political messaging in ways designed to influence voter behavior, potentially impacting elections. It directly affected democratic processes. It shows that privacy isn't just about what you know about yourself, but critically, about preventing others from using your data to control or influence you, or to distort public discourse, all without your informed consent.
It's a direct threat to the integrity of free and fair processes. Shows the real-world stakes.
Absolutely. And beyond preventing misuse, consider the crucial role of technology in democratic exercises themselves, where privacy is an explicit design goal, a non-negotiable requirement.
Like voting.
Exactly. Take electronic voting.
Yeah.
The goal here is to enable fair, trustworthy elections using electronic infrastructure, even when facing adversaries who might try to sway results or undermine public confidence. A crucial aspect e-voting schemes strive for is ballot secrecy. This means no adversary, not even the system administrators or election officials ideally, can determine which candidate a specific user voted for.
That's non-negotiable for a fair election. People need to vote without fear.
Absolutely. They also aim for universal verifiability. This allows any external observer, maybe a watchdog group or even just an interested citizen, to verify that all the votes cast are indeed counted correctly and that the final tally adds up.
Building collective trust in the outcome.
Right. And some protocols offer a related property, individual verifiability. This lets each voter confirm that their own vote was correctly recorded and included in the final count without revealing how they voted.
So I can check my vote went in right, but nobody else can see who I voted for.
That's the idea.
Right.
CYBOK references work by people like Benelo on how these critical aspects are assessed to achieve what's called end-to-end verifiability in these very sensitive systems. It's a blend of individual secrecy and collective transparency, fundamental to digital democracy, though technically incredibly challenging to get perfect.
Okay, e-voting is one example. What else?
Another critical area where privacy technologies uphold democratic values is in anonymity networks and censorship circumvention. These are systems specifically designed to protect the anonymity of both users and content creators. They serve as a vital tool in societies where freedom of expression might be curtailed, or where individuals, maybe journalists or activists, need to communicate sensitive information without being identified.
Tools like Tor?
Tor is a well-known example. CYBOK specifically mentions Freenet as another prime example. It's a robust peer-to-peer system designed to publish, replicate, and retrieve data while protecting the anonymity of both authors and readers. What's even more remarkable about Freenet, and a key design goal, is that it provides deniability for the entities actually storing the information.
Deniability, meaning the server operator can say, I don't know what's on my server.
Exactly. The nodes or servers themselves can't easily determine the content of the encrypted files they're holding, so they can legitimately claim unawareness of what they're serving, which offers them protection.
Wow. So how does Freenet manage that incredible level of anonymity and deniability? It sounds incredibly complex to hide both the source and the content, especially in a distributed network.
It operates on a truly fascinating and intricate principle. Files are located using a unique key, which is typically a hash of the file itself, but could also be a description or just a string. When you request a file, your Freenet node gets this key and asks its immediate neighbors in the network to find it. If a neighbor doesn't have it, it passes the request on to its neighbors, and so on. It creates this chain of requests rippling through the network until the file is found somewhere.
Okay, the request propagates. How does the file get back?
Once located, the file is sent back along the exact same path that the request followed, but in reverse. This clever mechanism ensures that the node holding the data doesn't know the ultimate recipient, and the node requesting it doesn't know which specific node originally stored it. It decouples source and destination.
Very clever. And publishing, how does that work anonymously?
For publishing, if a key doesn't already exist, the publisher sends the file along a path determined by the key. Nodes along this path then decide randomly whether to store a copy of the file. This randomized distributed storage further protects the publisher's anonymity, as no single node is necessarily the originator or sole keeper of the data. The file just sort of appears in the network.
Inspired by concepts like an eternity service.
Exactly. CYBOK mentions Anderson's eternity service concept, which envisioned a way to permanently and anonymously publish information, making it highly resilient to censorship or takedown attempts.
But even these systems face challenges.
Oh, always. Our source notes the existence of traceback attacks on Freenet, where researchers try to find ways to de-anonymize users or publishers. It's that constant cat-and-mouse game in security. Attackers are always looking for weaknesses.
So these technologies aren't just technical curiosities. They're deeply intertwined with the fabric of democratic society.
Absolutely. Ensuring fundamental rights like free expression and association in the digital age, especially in repressive environments.
Okay, given all these complex challenges, the trade-offs, the societal importance, how do we actually build systems that are private by design? Rather than just trying to bolt privacy on as an afterthought, which rarely works well, this seems like a massive engineering undertaking.
It absolutely is, and this is where the discipline of privacy engineering comes in. It's essentially the systematic application of robust security software engineering techniques throughout the entire system development lifecycle. The goal is simple in concept, but incredibly ambitious in practice, to ensure that software is secure and private by default. Right from the moment of its conception, not as an optional add-on you might enable later.
So it's not just a feature you toggle on or off, but something fundamental woven into the design and architecture from day one. That sounds like a huge shift in mindset for developers and organizations.
It is a major shift, and it has to start at the very beginning with design requirements. These must explicitly include selecting appropriate security and privacy features, things like using strong cryptography, having robust authentication methods, implementing comprehensive, maybe even privacy-preserving, logging, And these choices aren't just pulled out of thin air. They are strategically driven by threat modeling. This is a structured process of systematically identifying potential threats and vulnerabilities specific to the system being built. Where could attacks come from? What data is most sensitive?
Thinking like an attacker to build better defenses.
Exactly. And a core principle here, which CYBOK credits to Howard, is to reduce the attack surface, essentially minimizing all the points where attackers might try to enter data into a system or extract it out.
Like closing unnecessary doors and windows in a building.
Perfect analogy. It means stripping away unnecessary features, limiting external interfaces, reducing the amount of code that needs to be trusted, the Trusted Computing Base, or TCB. All this makes the system inherently more resilient and private because there are fewer places for things to go wrong.
Okay, so what are some of the key principles and practices that guide this privacy engineering approach? Are there established frameworks or specific techniques that help organizations actually do this across large teams or complex projects?
Yes, there are several, spanning from high-level guidelines to very detailed implementation strategies, all aimed at baking privacy into the software's DNA. The IE Center for Secure Design, for instance, has done really valuable work. They've meticulously enumerated the top 10 security design flaws that commonly plague software things developers often get wrong and provide specific, actionable guidelines on how to avoid them. It's an incredibly practical resource for engineers on the ground.
Avoiding known pitfalls. Makes sense. What else?
Another critical practice, especially relevant in today's cloud-first world, is tenant segregation in cloud applications. Think about multi-tenant cloud environments, where multiple customers share the same underlying infrastructure, like databases and servers.
Like living in an apartment building versus a single-family home.
Exactly. You need strong walls. Ensuring robust privacy and preventing data leakage between tenants is absolutely critical. Privacy engineering dictates practices like using a separate schema database design for each tenant, rather than just relying on a single tenant ID column mixed in with everyone else's data.
So each tenant gets their own dedicated section of the database.
Essentially, yes. It provides much stronger isolation, significantly reducing the risk of one tenant's data accidentally leaking to another due to a simple query error or a misconfiguration. This principle also extends to how common cloud provider services, Platform as a Service or PaaS, are designed and deployed, ensuring strict tenant segregation is maintained even when using shared cloud resources. Clear, secure boundaries for your data.
Okay, strong isolation in the cloud. What about protecting sensitive data itself?
That's where tokenization of sensitive data comes in. It's a really powerful method that directly tackles the problem of sensitive information exposure. It involves strategically removing sensitive data, like a credit card number or a national ID, from systems where it doesn't strictly need to reside, or disassociating it from the immediate context that makes it sensitive.
How does that work? You replace it with something else?
Yes, the sensitive data is replaced with a token, which is a non-sensitive, often randomly generated unique identifier. The actual sensitive data is then encrypted and stored securely within a highly protected central system, like a digital vault, often with robust redundancy for disaster recovery.
So most systems only ever see the token, not the real data.
Exactly. This significantly reduces the exposure of sensitive information in less controlled or less secure environments. If a system handling only tokens is breached, the attacker gets a bunch of useless identifiers, not the actual valuable, re-identifiable information like credit card numbers.
That sounds very effective for things like payment processing.
It's widely used there, yes. Now, to manage and evaluate all these comprehensive efforts across an organization, frameworks like the Software Assurance Maturity Model, SAM, are invaluable. SAM provides a structured framework for organizations to describe, evaluate, and ultimately improve their software security initiatives over time. It helps them measure their maturity. It organizes security activities into 4 key business functions: governance, covering strategy, metrics, compliance, training; intelligence, focusing on threat modeling, defining security features, setting standards; secure software development lifecycle touchpoints like architecture analysis, code review, security testing at various stages; and deployment, including penetration testing, managing the software environment securely, config and vulnerability management.
So it helps build a balanced program and track progress.
Right. And complementing SAM is the Building Security in Maturity Model, BSIM, often pronounced BSIM. This is more of an industry benchmarking model. Through detailed in-person interviews with security leaders, participating organizations get a scorecard showing their adoption of 113 specific software security activities. And crucially, they can directly compare themselves against other firms in their industry or across different sectors.
So you can see how you stack up against your peers.
Exactly. It provides invaluable empirical data on the actual state of security practices in the real world, helping companies understand where they stand and identify areas where they might be lagging or leading.
Any other major frameworks?
Well, of course, leading technology companies often develop and share their own internal processes, which then become influential de facto standards. The Microsoft Security Development Lifecycle, SDL, is a prime example mentioned in CYBOK. These are Microsoft's rigorous internal practices for building secure products and services. They're continuously updated and refined to address new challenges like cloud computing, the Internet of Things, IoT, and artificial intelligence, AI, ensuring their vast array of products meet extremely high security and privacy standards.
So taken together, these frameworks represent a profound shift.
I think so. A shift from just reacting to security flaws after they emerge to systematically trying to engineer them out of existence from the very start, building security and privacy in, not bolting it on.
That's a comprehensive look at the processes and frameworks, but what are the actual technological building blocks that these privacy engineers are using day to day? What's the fundamental tech that makes all this privacy engineering possible?
Great question. Because underpinning all those high-level principles and frameworks are fundamental technological building blocks that privacy engineers leverage constantly. First and foremost, there's cryptography. It is, without a doubt, the mathematical backbone of digital privacy. It's not just one thing. It involves everything from secure key generation, how you create strong, unpredictable keys, to incredibly sophisticated encryption schemes. We primarily use two main types of encryption. There's symmetric encryption, where the same secret key encrypts and decrypts the data. Think of standards like AES. Both parties need to possess and carefully guard that shared secret key.
Like a shared code book.
Exactly. And then we also rely heavily on public key encryption, sometimes called asymmetric encryption. This was revolutionary because it allows secure communication without needing to share a secret key beforehand. Here you have a pair of keys, a public key that anyone can use to encrypt messages to you, and a private key that only you have, which is needed to decrypt those messages. Think of standards like RSA-CAM or ECs.
So anyone can drop a letter in my mailbox. Public key, but only I have the key to open the mailbox. Private key.
That's a classic analogy, yes.
Mm-hmm.
We also rely on things like message authentication codes, MACs,
Right.
and digital signatures like RSA, PSS. These aren't primarily for confidentiality, but for ensuring data integrity and authenticity.
Meaning the data hasn't been tampered with and it really came from who it says it came from.
Precisely. Critical for trust. Now, when we talk about how secure these cryptographic methods are, it's not just a simple yes-no. A key part of privacy engineering is understanding different attack capabilities and designing cryptography to withstand them.
Right, you mentioned different levels of attacker earlier.
Yes. A simple passive attacker just observes encrypted communications, trying to break the code by finding patterns. But stronger, more realistic models include chosen plaintext attacks, CPA. Here, the adversary can get the encryption of messages of their choosing. This helps them learn about how the encryption function works. Even more powerful are chosen ciphertext attacks, CCA. Here, the adversary has access to both an encryption oracle, they can encrypt anything, and a decryption oracle. They can decrypt anything except the specific target ciphertext they're trying to break. This gives them a very powerful tool to probe for weaknesses in the implementation.
So crypto needs to be designed to resist these increasingly powerful attacks.
Absolutely. And looking to the future, engineers are already working hard on lattice-based constructions and other forms of post-quantum cryptography. These are designed to resist attacks from hypothetical, large-scale quantum computers, which could potentially break much of our current public key cryptography.
Planning for the quantum future.
We have to. And beyond just simple encryption, there are other advanced cryptographic concepts vital for privacy. We mentioned Shamir's secret sharing earlier, allowing a secret to be divided among multiple parties so that only a sufficient number of them working together can reconstruct it. Great for redundancy and preventing single points of failure.
And that other one, homomorphic encryption.
Yes, homomorphic encryption. This is truly a potential game changer for privacy. It allows computations like addition or multiplication to be performed directly on encrypted data without decrypting it first.
So you can analyze encrypted data without ever seeing the raw data.
That's the promise. Imagine a cloud service that can analyze your private medical data to give you health insights, but the cloud provider never actually sees your sensitive data in plaintext. This could revolutionize privacy in cloud computing and data analytics, although it's still computationally very intensive today.
Okay, cryptography is fundamental. What's next up the stack?
Moving up, We have operating systems and virtualization. These are arguably the most privileged components of any computing system. If the OS or the hypervisor is compromised, pretty much all bets are off for privacy. So their security is absolutely critical. Privacy engineering here applies fundamental principles laid out decades ago by Sulzer and Schroeder, which are foundational in computer security. Things like least privilege. Components should operate with only the minimum permissions necessary to do their job. This severely limits potential damage if one component is compromised.
Don't give keys to worms you don't need to enter.
Exactly. Also, complete mediation. Every single access attempt to an object must be checked against the authorization rules.
Yeah.
No shortcuts, no cache permissions that might become outdated, and economy of mechanism, keeping the security critical part of the system, the trusted computing base, or TCB, as small and simple as possible. Why? Because smaller code means fewer potential bugs and a smaller attack surface to defend.
Makes sense. Keep the critical core tiny and robust.
Right. For instance, basic memory protection using page tables managed by the OS ensures that one application running on your computer can't just reach into and access another application's data without authorization. This creates essential isolation between processes. And then there are cutting-edge developments like trusted execution environments, TEs. You might hear names like ARM Trust Zone or Intel SGX. These use hardware support to create isolated, secure environments within the main processor where sensitive code can run, protected even from a compromised operating system.
Like a secure vault inside the chip itself.
That's the idea. They provide a strong hardware root of trust. However, even these advanced Ts have proven susceptible to sophisticated side-channel attacks.
Side-channel attacks, what are those?
These are attacks where information isn't leaked by breaking the encryption or finding a software bug directly. Instead, information is leaked through indirect, often unintended physical or timing characteristics of the system's operation, like minute variations in how long an operation takes, or how much power the chip consumes, or even the electromagnetic radiation it emits, or sometimes even the sound it makes. Attackers can analyze these side channels to infer secret information, like cryptographic keys, being processed inside the TE.
Wow, so even if the vault door is locked, you might be able to figure out the combination by listening closely to the clicks.
That's a great analogy for it. It's a constant battle of wits between designers trying to eliminate these leakages and attackers trying to find new ones.
Okay, that reminds me that privacy isn't just about what happens on one computer. Most systems are distributed now. Data and processes spread across networks that must present unique privacy engineering challenges. How are those addressed?
Indeed. Distributed systems security is another crucial area. It addresses the unique challenges of networked systems where data and processes are spread across multiple, potentially untrusted machines. For instance, in peer-to-peer, P2P systems like Freenet or BitTorrent, privacy engineering involves designing protocols and coordination styles, whether they operate synchronously, where events happen in lockstep, or asynchronously, which is more common in the real world, and maintain privacy and integrity, even when some participants might be unreliable or outright malicious. Techniques like Byzantine fault tolerance, BFT, are often used here. BFT protocols allow a distributed system to reach agreement or maintain consistent state, even if a certain fraction of the nodes, say up to a third, are behaving arbitrarily badly, lying, crashing, colluding.
So the system can keep working correctly even with some bad actors.
Yes, as long as the number of bad actors doesn't exceed the threshold the protocol is designed for. Protecting data at rest, stored data, and data in motion, data moving across the network, in these complex systems, including in emerging technologies like blockchains, requires very careful application of cryptographic and architectural principles. You need to prevent compromises like information leakage from virtual machines running on shared hardware via covert channels, or those side channels we just talked about, which are subtle, often unintended communication paths that bypass normal security controls.
BFT sounds powerful, but probably complex.
It is. BFT protocols are incredibly powerful for ensuring integrity and availability in the face of malicious behavior, but they are often computationally expensive and require a lot of message exchanges between nodes to reach consensus. So they're typically applied in critical high-trust scenarios where privacy and integrity are absolutely paramount.
Okay, what other pillars are there for privacy engineering?
Well, we absolutely have to talk about authentication, authorization, and accountability, often just called AAA. These are foundational pillars in virtually any system that handles sensitive data or requires controlled access. Authentication is about verifying who you are, ensuring that only legitimate users can access the system in the first place. This uses methods ranging from traditional passwords, hopefully strong ones, to sophisticated biometrics like fingerprint or facial recognition.
And increasingly, multi-factor authentication, MFA.
Yes, MFA is crucial for enhanced security. It layers multiple methods, like something you know, password, something you have, a phone app generating a code, or something your biometrics. Once you're authenticated, authorization determines what you're actually allowed to do. It implements different access control models. We have discretionary access control, DAC, common in systems like Unix, Linux, or Windows, where the owner of a file or resource controls who can access it. There's mandatory access control, MAC, often used in high-security environments, which imposes strict system-wide rules based on data sensitivity labels and user security clearances. And there's role-based access control, RBAC, which is very common in organizations, simplifying permissions by assigning them based on your job title or role. Your accountant, administrator, read-only user.
Okay, so auth N verifies who, auth Z verifies what? What's the final A?
The final A is accountability. This ensures that actions performed within the system can be traced back to a specific entity, usually a user account. This relies heavily on robust audit logs that record significant events. Who logged in when, what files were accessed, what changes were made. Privacy engineers designed these logging systems to handle potentially massive volumes of log data, often using automated processing and even machine learning to detect anomalies or suspicious patterns that might indicate a breach or misuse. But they also have to manage the delicate balance between logging enough for accountability and system availability, not letting logging slow things down too much, and also ensuring the logs themselves don't become a new privacy risk by containing too much sensitive information.
Right, the logs themselves could leak data if not handled carefully.
Exactly.
Okay, one last area feels important. We've talked software, networks, principles. What about the physical hardware itself? Does privacy engineering extend down to the silicon?
It absolutely does. Hardware and physical security is the final layer we should touch on. Privacy engineering isn't just about software. It extends right down to the underlying hardware. There are standards like FIPS 142, Federal Information Processing Standard in the U.S., which defines rigorous security levels for cryptographic modules. These standards cover not just the cryptographic algorithms, but also requirements for physical tamper resistance, protection against side channel attacks, and secure key management, ensuring the hardware module itself is a secure foundation. And we have dedicated hardware devices specifically engineered for security. Hardware security modules, HSMs, are hardened appliances designed for securely generating, storing, and managing cryptographic keys, often used in banking or certificate authorities. Trusted platform modules, TPMs, are smaller chips found in many laptops and servers, providing a hardware root of trust for things like secure boot and disk encryption key storage.
So specialized hardware providing a secure anchor.
Precisely. And even the physical security of sensors in cyber-physical systems is now part of the scope. Physical layer security techniques are being developed. For example, using MIMO, multiple output antennas in wireless communication, allows systems to actively steer radio signals towards the intended recipient and create nulls in the direction of potential eavesdroppers, making interception much harder. Methods for secure distance measurement are also crucial. Think about applications like keyless entry for cars or autonomous vehicles needing to know precisely how far away another object is. Techniques using ultra-wideband (UWB) radio pulses can provide very precise distance measurements that are much harder to spoof than traditional methods like GPS or Bluetooth signal strength. Preventing spoofing here is critical for both safety and privacy. For example, preventing unauthorized access.
And what about attacks at that physical layer?
Understanding vulnerabilities like electromagnetic interference, EMI, spoofing of analog sensors, is also vital. An attacker could potentially inject malicious noise or signals using EMI to trick a sensor, maybe a temperature sensor or an accelerometer, into reporting false data. Preventing these physical layer attacks is essential for maintaining data integrity, which is often a prerequisite for privacy. If the data itself is corrupted at the source, privacy measures further up the stack might be undermined.
Wow, so it really is holistic.
It has to be. All these components, from those high-level policy frameworks like SAM and BSIM, down to the intricacies of cryptographic algorithms, operating system design, network protocols, and even the physical security of hardware and sensors, all come together under this vast umbrella of privacy engineering. The goal is to ensure that privacy is considered systematically, holistically, throughout the entire digital ecosystem.
This deep dive has truly given us, and hopefully you listening, a completely new perspective on privacy. It's so much more than just keeping secrets. It's this dynamic, really ever-evolving interplay of confidentiality, control, and transparency. And it's all underpinned by this massive, continuous engineering effort across every single layer of our digital world, from abstract math right down to physical hardware, and crucially, the human factor of how we interact with it all.
Indeed, we've seen our privacy as a fundamental human right, absolutely essential for democratic values, and how real-world incidents like Cambridge Analytica painfully underscore the necessity of robust privacy technologies. From those nuanced mathematical models of differential privacy trying to hide you statistically in a crowd, to the secure design of operating systems and hardware. Well, privacy engineering is a constant evolving field. It's all about building trust and control into these incredibly complex systems. And it often involves balancing competing demands, utility versus security, usability versus complexity, and confronting challenges as diverse as those confusing user interfaces and even physical attacks that exploit subtle leakages we never thought of before.
It's certainly clear that as technology continues to integrate computing, networking, and control elements into new cyber-physical systems, think smart homes, autonomous vehicles, smart cities, will continue to face novel and probably increasingly sophisticated challenges to our privacy. So, what new forms of privacy will we even need to define? What new engineering marvels will be required as technology continues to evolve at this breakneck speed? And maybe more importantly, how can we ensure our democratic values are preserved in an increasingly data-driven world where data itself represents so much power? That's definitely something profound for you to mull over long after this deep dive ends.
Absolutely. And speaking of the evolving digital landscape, understanding the adversaries, the ones who create the need for all these defenses, is just as crucial as understanding the defenses themselves. So our next session will explore the world of malicious actors and the threats they pose. Join us next time for a deep dive into malware and attack defenses, where we'll explore understanding the threats that make these privacy measures we've discussed today so critically important and how we can better protect ourselves from them.
Sounds essential. Looking forward to it. Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive.